Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Nariman. I'm a media relations executive here at Cision. As we all know, the way media operates is different in each market. These differences determine how journalists cover news and where they get it from. To highlight these differences and understand the media landscape in these markets, we are introducing this new series, Media Coffee. We will be interviewing journalists from leading media organizations in major markets around the world to answer some of your biggest questions, like how to attract media attention and ensure they pick up your press releases, the best way to communicate with the media, tips on writing press releases, and more. And for those of you who haven't heard of Cision, we are a global provider of earned media software and services to public relations and marketing comms professionals. If you are interested in knowing more about our services, please visit our website and follow our social media. Now I have the pleasure to welcome Rubén Marcos from Europa Press. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. Could you please start by introducing yourself?
Thank you, Nariman. My name is Rubén Marcos. I work in Europa Press. I've been in this company for 23 years now, so quite a long experience. Right now I'm working as a corporate communications consultant in that service we have. But before that, I was an editor in the health and business services. And I started translating press releases from PR Newswire. That's my first job in Europa Press.
That's great, actually. It's a pleasure to have you and have this conversation with you as well, because obviously you have such a long experience working in a newsroom, working at news agencies, and obviously, interacting with other press or translating our press releases as well. One of the first questions that we usually get asked is just, clients are interested to know more about the media landscape in each market. So would you like to give us just a brief about the media landscape in Spain?
Oh, the media landscape in Spain, it has changed a lot. In the last 20, 30 years, it was basically newspapers, printing newspapers, then came the internet. I think it happened in all countries. Then all media had to have a website full of news. And at first they did so with news agencies. Then they started creating their own online newsrooms, then mixing up online and printed newsrooms. There's been a lot of changes, and obviously the workload has increased a lot for journalists, and even more after the economic crisis in the end of 2000s. So right now you have basically smaller newsrooms and journalists doing a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we hear actually from a lot of different people that, with the changing media landscape, journalists have more work nowadays. People usually wonder, are journalists still interested in press releases? So could you tell us what's the attitude in Spain when it comes to press releases? Are they happy still to receive them, or would they like to be communicated or contacted in different ways?
I think that journalists are okay with press releases. They help them. It's a tool that helps them a lot in their daily work. Especially in our case, in a news agency, we produce like 1,000 news stories every day, not only here in Madrid, but also in the different regional branches we have all around Spain. And most of the news stories come from press releases, not only by companies, but also government agencies, NGOs, scientific societies, researchers, there's a lot of sources pulling out press releases, and for us, it's really helpful.
That's actually wonderful to hear and reassuring as well to our clients. I wanted to ask you about Europa Press and their distribution. How is their distribution in Spain, and do you distribute to other European countries?
No, we work only in Spain. Mainly our clients are media outlets, newspapers, radio stations, TV channels, websites. Also, a lot of big companies, listed companies are subscribers of our services, and government agencies a lot, our clients. And that's what we do. We send news to those. Our goal is not to reach the final audience, is to reach the people who are interested in the news, because for the activity, whether you are a newspaper or a magazine, or you're a company that wants to have some insight of what's going on in Spain or in the world. But we don't distribute outside of Spain. We have collaboration with some news agencies outside of Spain for the foreign service, but it's all news to Spain.
Just going back again to press releases, I wanted to know what attracts your attention to press releases. When you read a press release, what's the first thing that attracts your attention?
I think it depends on in which section you're working. If you are in the business and finance, for instance, of course, if the press release comes from a big company, a well-known company, that's the first thing it's gonna catch your attention. You know, if it's Apple or British Airways or any of those big companies, of course you're gonna pay attention to that because the companies, that they're always working a lot on new products, new services. If it's not a well-known company, if it's for instance a startup company, maybe it's where is the innovation or what is new about the product or the service they're trying to communicate, to tell you about. But you're always looking for something new, something that has some interest to the audience, that then people can say, would say, I want to read this story, I want to read this news, because there's something interesting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Then for the smaller companies or smaller organizations, what are your recommendation or advice to them to basically attract the journalist attention? As you said, when journalists see big companies, they automatically open press releases. But what about smaller companies, medium size?
I think you have to be really straightforward, at least for us as a news agency. We don't write long stories full of context or full of details. We go very to the basic of the information, and so you should write your stories in that way. Be very straightforward, and also focus on what makes you different from your competition, or what makes you different from a big company. Where is your strongest point, like you're launching a new service. Imagine a new online banking service, for example. Okay, there's hundreds of online banking services. What is different in your service? What do you add? What is your added value to the client?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That makes sense, actually. I wanted to also ask you, in terms of press releases, what's your preferred length and format for a press release? I mean, that's something it's up to debate all the time. Should it be short, long? And just to add one more question to that is, when it comes to language as well, in Spain, do they need to be careful or mindful of writing informal or informal? So what's your advice to companies in that regard?
From our perspective as a news agency, starting with the last question, I will say write formally, because you don't dress the same way a news agency than a lifestyle magazine. Mm-hmm. There are different audiences, and maybe you have to address them in different ways. But if you're addressing a news agency, you have to be a little bit formal in your style of writing. And regarding the length, I always say keep your stories short. Don't go. I mean, 1-2 pages is enough most of the time to tell what you want to tell to a journalist. Obviously, if you're working in a PR department for an NGO and you're announcing the results of a report about poverty in Africa, maybe you're going to need more than 2 pages. You're going to need a longer press release to cover all those issues. But most of the time, I think you can do it in 2-3 at the most pages.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And with regards to attachment as well with it, in terms of like pictures, videos, as a news agency, would you like to receive those as attachment? What's the best way to send it to you or provide you with it?
I think that anything that you can add to your press release to make it more interesting is good. You should do it. whether it is pictures or videos or links to a website or whatever you want to put in. It's great. For us, in the beginning, we were mostly plain text news agency. So that's what our clients used to receive, plain text. Now we are integrating a lot of pictures, a lot of videos, also sound bites. That's important too, because we have radios that are clients and they need sound bites. They might not need a photo, they might not need a whole video, but just the sound. So anything that you can add that you think that is interesting or can make it more attractive to your press release, you should go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually interesting. You mentioned the radio part and the sound bites as well. I think that would be useful for our clients to hear. Going back again to the number of press releases that you receive, I'm sure you receive hundreds of press releases on a daily basis. So do you have someone scanning all of those press releases? And how do you verify the accuracy of the information in them?
We don't have anybody scanning all the press releases. Each service, each section within Europa Press does its own scanning. Usually it's the chief editor in that section who sees the press releases and decides who works on who, like you are working on this, you're working on that. Yeah, but usually we don't, it's basically you look at the source of the press release. That gives you a clue of if it's not it's a trusted source. So if it's coming from a company you're receiving press releases for a long time, you trust it. You trust that the information they're giving you is true, because you can verify all the press releases you received in a single day.
Should press releases intended for journalists in Spain differ from those distributed in other Spanish-speaking countries?
When it comes to the language, I would say yes, because although Spanish is very similar in all parts of the world, there are some regional or local expression or words that can mean very different in Mexico or here in Spain.
Yeah.
So I think you should do a little extra job translating the press releases to Spanish, Spain Spanish, and Latin America Spanish.
So since you have all this round experience, what do you think are the common mistakes companies make when they communicate with the media throughout your whole experience?
I would say that sometimes you try to communicate too much. I know that some companies have to do it because, listed companies, they have legal requirements to be very transparent in their communications and their activities. But most of the time, I think you're trying to there are things that you can use in a different way, not maybe in a press release, maybe use, social media to communicate or I don't know, try different formats of different ways of reaching your audience or your target audience. But sometimes it's like we need to communicate, send press releases. Sometimes it's like you don't need to do that. Maybe.
Yeah. So by communicating too much, can you please clarify what does that mean? Because one of the questions that we usually get is, should I follow up after sending a press release? Should I call the journalist to make sure that they've seen my press release? So what do you mean by communicating too much?
What I mean is that sometimes you want to communicate something through a press release that isn't really something new or isn't really relevant. So you have to think carefully before sending a press release or doing whatever communication strategy you want to follow. Do I really need to do this? And then the answer is yes. Okay, go ahead. And regarding the second part of the question, the follow-up, I think if you have interest in a certain, imagine a newspaper or a certain industry website, something like that you want to be there, I think a follow-up is good. Maybe not on a phone call. Right now, just maybe send an email, like checking, did you receive my press release a few hours ago? Or do you need something more? Can I get in contact with an expert? Something like that, or try to offer something new. And here in Spain, for instance, we have a lot of contact with journalists through WhatsApp. which is something that I think has grown a lot in the last couple of years. And we have requests for interviews from journalists all around Spain just by WhatsApp.
Well, that's actually quite interesting. I haven't really heard that before. So basically, it's a common practice for journalists to share their WhatsApp and receive communication from PR professionals. Is that correct?
Yeah, they are used to exchange phone numbers and ask you questions through WhatsApp. And can you put me in contact with an expert about whatever topic? And yeah, you call them, the expert is available. Yes, go to WhatsApp and okay, this is the phone, the guy's phone number. You can call him. Mm-hmm. So we do that a lot. Yes.
Oh, that's quite interesting, actually. That's really interesting. And I wanted to go back just a bit about, to your answer in my previous question. You said relevancy, and that's something I've heard quite often from few journalists as well, is that news or press releases need to be relevant to the market and to the audience that they're targeting as well. So yeah, thank you for that. I definitely think it's an important keyword.
Yeah, definitely relevance is the most important thing when you're trying to communicate, because if you're trying to communicate something that has already been said, has already been announced, or it doesn't add, or it's a service or a product that doesn't add anything new, I don't think that you're gonna make it to the news stories.
Yeah,
you need to be relevant in some way. It might be because your services is reaching somewhere where nobody has been there before, or because your services are really innovative, or because are really cheap, or because I don't know, but you have to be something relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another question that I have is, when is the best time to send a press release?
Well, if you are communicating something that is really, really, really important any time of the day. I mean, imagine a company announcing a merger or an acquisition. That's something that's relevant and that's gonna be interesting at any time of the day. I would recommend companies to delay the distribution of press releases to not early in the morning, because the first thing journalists do when they reach the office or when they are working at home, like right now with the pandemic, is to open your email. And usually you have like 20, 30, 40 emails unread. And you're maybe not going to pay very much attention to the press releases in that specific time of the day. Maybe it would be better to wait up, like noon, something like that, to send your press releases. But of course, what I said before, if you have something really important to announce, you have to go with it.
Is there any specific time or period during the year where news slow down a bit? For example, in December, you see a lot of lifestyle or, lifestyle magazine or news spike up, obviously, because of the Christmas period. But like throughout the year, do you think there's any time period where it's preferred to stay away from them, like during summer, for example, winter, December?
I don't think there is any bad moment in the year to be proactive in your communications. Obviously, in the summer, a lot of people are on holiday, a lot of journalists are on holidays. So maybe you're gonna get less attention, but at the same time, there are very few stories. So maybe you're gonna make it to the newspapers or to the magazines or whatever, because the journalists are eager to have something to tell, So I don't think it's a bad moment. I mean, always think about ahead. Like I want to communicate this, or yes, next week is imagine Halloween or Black Friday or whatever. Okay, maybe I need to delay this distribution a few weeks or a few days so it doesn't get mixed with that. But I don't think there is any bad month of the year for doing communication.
So one last question before my final question. What do you expect from PR professionals to provide you with? What do you absolutely need from them to know before they send you a press release to include in the email?
What we need, I think we need to be really helpful in the way that if you send a press release and I need to call you back because I need something, there's something I don't understand or I'm not quite sure what it means, or I need to talk with a spokesperson in your company, you have to provide me that. Because sometimes you send a press release, and I haven't been in that part too. You send a press release, people ask you to talk to somebody in your company or your client, and no, we don't have anybody that can answer right now, a journalist. And that's a huge mistake. You have to be very, you have to stay ready to respond to any question or to any demand by the journalist.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense, actually, to have someone ready to answer journalist press releases. So my last question is, do you have any last recommendations that you would like to share with our clients?
I would recommend your clients to plan ahead, see what are the options they have to communicate, because maybe you don't always need to distribute a press release. Maybe you can communicate with your target, as I said before, via social media, or maybe you can use different formats. And right now here in Spain, I think it's happening also in different countries. We have seen a lot of interest in podcasts. And some companies are using podcasts, for their communication strategy, like sponsoring a podcast or providing experts to talk in a podcast about a certain topic. So I would say explore your ways, your options, and decide which is the best. And if it's a press release, it's good. It helps. We are free to receive press releases, and be very proactive with that, and provide all the information that you can, and all the photos, videos, whatever you have that can make your press release more attractive. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a great advice, actually. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for, giving us time as well today to, have this conversation with you, and for the insight that you gave us as well about media landscape in Spain, and how to best communicate with journalists there. This is the end of our questions. And again, just to remind our viewers, if you want to know more about Cision and about our services as well, please visit our website, cision.com, and follow us on social media. Thank you very much.